During the summer, I get out early on Fridays, so if court is in session, then I go down there and see what's going on. This morning, Katherine Jackson was on the stand as a witness, and I wasn't able to go in the morning. I got there right during their lunch break, and she came back on. Putnam that was asking the questions. He asked a question over and over and over again, and she kept saying, I don't understand, and I kept thinking, I don't understand. I mean, it was really a funny way of saying, why did you bring a lawsuit against AEG? I think that's really all he was asking, but he asked, had you thought prior to September 15th, 2010, did you discuss this with anyone but your attorneys? And it was just very convoluted. She was tired. She decided to call it a day. And that's all I got to see. But after that, we went outside to where the interviews were happening with the attorneys, well, at least with Brian Panish. And it was, I don't bring a camera to court because I know I'll get in trouble if I use it. While they were hollering out their questions to Brian Panish, I noticed, I mean, I've had a couple of nagging questions actually, and since I'm not the media, I didn't feel comfortable enough hollering out my question to Brian Panish. I didn't think it was my place to do that there. So I noticed that Kevin Boyle, who is also representing Mrs. Jackson, and so I went over to him and I asked him, well, so what's the story with DeLeo's computer? There was such a big deal made out of getting it. You're ending your defense with Mrs. Jackson. And he said, we're going through the computer. There's so much stuff on there. And I said, but what will the judge allow it after, you've already ended your case? And he said, given the circumstances, I'm sure that if we do come up with something that we want to introduce, she'll probably allow it. And then I noticed that Conrad Murray's attorney was there. When I noticed her, she came over to Kevin Boyle. Something had been nagging in the back of my mind when I read that Conrad Murray had left a message for Paris Jackson. If you remember, a little while ago, might have been, I think, around mid-June, where he left that bizarre message for Paris Jackson. And I could swear it was TMZ that said that he had a cell phone. Well, I can't remember the reasons why he was allowed a cell phone in his cell, but that he was allowed a cell phone in his cell. And so I brought that up to her, and she said, where did I want to stop that story right now. I want to end that story right now. She said, I believe it was Radar, and she couldn't remember the name, but I think she was referring to Radar Online, who started that story. And I could swear it was TMZ. So I said, no, I think it was TMZ. And she said, no, it was Radar. But, when TMZ posted on YouTube the video, I left a comment like, well, how did you guys get a hold of a message from Conrad Murray to Paris Jackson? And then I think it was like the next day or 2 days later, TMZ explained the situation that Conrad Murray had called TMZ. So I said to her, Valerie Wass, which is the attorney for Conrad Murray, how did anybody get a hold of that recording? I said, he called Paris directly? And she said, well, no, he called a friend. And I said, and the friend got the recording to either Radar or TMZ? Valerie Wass told me that she had been in Conrad Murray's cell and that he doesn't have a normal cell with metal bars, but it was all cement blocks, and that there's a payphone on the wall, and that he can't get calls in from it, or make calls out unless he calls people collect and they accept the charges. So did he call Paris direct and expect her to accept the charges? Or did he call a media outlet, whether it was TMZ or Radar Online? And she got a little flustered, and at that point, I think it was Ellen Duke calling her over to the area where Brian Panish had been interviewed, and they wanted to get her in so that they can ask her questions. The big question is, will Conrad Murray be testifying in this trial? What I've been reading in the paper, AEG said that they won't have him testify. Kevin Boyle said that they don't see how it could help their case, so they probably wouldn't have Conrad Murray testify either. But I get the impression that she thinks Conrad Murray has something to say about this whole thing, and she wouldn't stop him if he wanted to disclose what he had to say about this. And speaking of which, switching gears totally, while we were at the courthouse, and like I said, Mrs. Jackson left shortly after the very first question after lunch. So we're hanging out in the hallway of the courtroom, and as I was listening to somebody tell me more about what's been going on, I look up. I could swear it was the mayor from Ghost, which means if it was the mayor from Ghost, well, you know what that would mean, right? And I swear it was him. So, I said, look, doesn't that look like the mayor of Ghost, to the person I was talking to? Over to these other women who were sitting on the bench. Doesn't that look like the mayor from Ghost? And yeah, they all thought, yes, what a remarkable resemblance. So, so then, like I said, the lawyers were all going upstairs so that they could go to do their interviews outside. And I'm just like a kid staring at this guy, because I'm thinking, well, if this really looks enough like the mayor Ghost, then it's got to be somebody inside there, right? So as I'm looking and staring like this little kid, I'm kind of like, here's the escalator going up, and I kind of stop, kind of hanging out the wall here looking, because and he makes his eyes get really big, like poor guy probably has no idea why, I'm sure it wasn't. Well, no, I'm not sure. That's how much it looked like him, especially when he did the big goofy eyes. Oh my goodness. So anyhow, I got my gift from K-Earth, and in my gift was also Thriller, the 25th anniversary, which I saw when it came out, and I didn't want to buy it because it's like all these songs are always on the same, they're always, every time, they kind of repeat themselves. So I thought, I'm not going to buy it. But it is so worth it for those songs that are redone with will.i.am and Akon and Fergie and Kanye West, and for that song For All Time. I haven't gotten to watch the DVD yet, but they are so worth it to hear those songs brought into today's kind of beat. Tomorrow night I get to go see Austin Brown, who I've never seen perform live, so I'm excited about that. He'll be at City Walk. So that's all that I can report for today.